An 11-year-old girl crawled into a burning vehicle while 30 grown men stood frozen helpless, watching. She had no shoes. She had not eaten in 3 days. She had been living under a bridge for 22 months because her father had abandoned her with a $20 bill and a note that said, "I'm sorry." What happened next would force the FBI to drop a federal case, make a motorcycle club weep in a courtroom, and turn the most invisible child in Arizona into a national headline. But the most disturbing part of this story is not the fire, not the explosion, not the 4 children screaming for help. It is what this girl whispered when they finally found her bleeding in an abandoned warehouse, and why those words changed everything. The police cruiser rolled past at exactly 3:47 in the morning. Bryn Ashford pressed herself deeper into the shadows beneath the overpass, her breath trapped in her lungs like a caged bird. The headlights swept across the concrete pillars, painting yellow stripes on the graffiti that told stories of everyone who had hidden here before her. She counted to 60, then 60 more. Only when the engine sound faded completely did she allow herself to exhale. 11 years old, 22 months on the streets, and still every time she saw those lights, her heart tried to break through her ribs. She could have asked for help. She knew that. She could have walked up to any police officer, any firefighter, any adult with a kind face, and said the words that would change everything. "I am alone. I am hungry. I am scared." But Bryn had learned what those words bought you. They bought you a system that processed children like products on an assembly line. They bought you foster homes where the checks mattered more than the kids. They bought you group facilities where girls went in with hope and came out with hollow eyes. They bought you a different kind of death. So Bryn stayed invisible. She moved through Phoenix like smoke, like shadow, like a memory that no one bothered to recall. She slept in different places every night. She ate whatever she could find or earn. She survived. That was all she had left. Survival. The morning her mother died had started like any other. March 15th, 2011. The Riverside Shelter for Women and Children. Bryn was 9 years old and she had been staring at the clock on the wall counting minutes until morning. Her mother had promised to take her to the library. The library was free. The library was warm. The library had books about places far away from here. 2:17 in the morning. The smoke alarm screamed. Bryn remembered the hallway filling with black smoke so thick she could not see her own hands. She remembered her mother's fingers digging into her shoulders hard enough to leave bruises that lasted for weeks. She remembered her mother's voice, the last words Elaine Ashford ever spoke to her daughter. "Run, baby. Run and don't look back." Bryn ran. Her mother did not follow. The fire marshal said she did not suffer. Bryn knew that was a lie, but she let the adults believe she believed them. It was easier that way. Her father appeared 3 days later. Donovan Ashford, a man built for whiskey bottles and broken promises, not for raising a daughter alone. He tried in his fractured way. 8 months of motel rooms, each one cheaper than the last. 8 months of watching her father fight a monster that did not negotiate or offer second chances. 8 months of pretending she did not notice the bottles multiplying in the bathroom, the way his hands shook in the mornings, the hollow look in his eyes that said he was already gone, even when he was standing right in front of her. November 23rd, 2011. Room 17 of the Dusty Trail Motel. Bryn woke to find the other bed empty, a $20 bill on the nightstand, a note that said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore." Bryn was 10 years old. She waited 3 days in that room, eating crackers from the vending machine, watching television with the sound turned low, hoping maybe her father had just gone to find work. Maybe he would come back. Maybe this was not the end. On the third day, when the motel manager knocked on the door asking about payment, Bryn climbed out the bathroom window and disappeared into the Arizona heat. 22 months later, she had $19.37 in her pocket, a fortune by her standards. She had earned it helping the produce manager at a grocery store unload trucks before dawn. The man had not asked for identification. He had simply looked at Bryn's too thin frame and handed her work gloves. $19 meant food for a week. Maybe new shoes from the thrift store if she found a pair that was not destroyed. For a homeless 11-year-old girl in Phoenix, Arizona, this was as close to hope as life ever got. Bryn settled against the concrete pillar, watching the occasional car pass overhead on Interstate 17. The August sun would rise in a few hours, bringing temperatures that could kill a person who did not know how to find shade. But for now, the night was almost peaceful. She reached into her pocket and touched two things she never let go. Her mother's silver locket, dented and tarnished, but still holding a photograph of the two of them from before everything broke. And her father's note, folded so many times the creases had worn thin, the ink fading but still readable. "I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore." She was nearly asleep when she heard the motorcycles. The sound started low like distant thunder on a clear day. Then it grew louder, deeper, a rumble that vibrated through the concrete and into her bones. Bryn pressed herself against the pillar and watched. They appeared on the highway above her like a metal river. 30 motorcycles, maybe more. Chrome glinting under the street lights, engines roaring in synchronized harmony that sounded almost like music. Behind them, a white minivan struggled to keep pace. Bryn caught a glimpse through the van's window. Small faces, children. One of them, a little girl with blonde hair, pressed her hand against the glass. The girl looked down, and for just a moment their eyes met across the distance. The little girl waved. Bryn's hand twitched. For a moment, just a moment, she almost waved back. Then she caught herself. Invisible people do not wave. Invisible people do not acknowledge. Invisible people survive by being nothing, by being no one, by never letting anyone remember they were there. She watched the convoy disappear into the distance, the thunder of their engines fading into silence. Just strangers passing through. Nothing to do with her. She did not know that in less than 4 hours she would see that little girl again. She did not know the child would be hanging upside down in a burning vehicle screaming for help. And she did not know that her hand, the one that had almost waved back, would be the only thing standing between that little girl and death. Above her, far to the north, a man named Robert Morrison was fighting to keep his eyes open. He was losing. Robert Morrison had been driving trucks for 23 years. 2 million miles. 0 accidents. A record that would end the moment his eyes closed at 73 miles per hour. The problem was not skill or equipment or weather. The problem was $67,000 in medical debt, his wife's liver cancer, insurance that covered most but not all, bills that piled up like snow in a Minnesota winter. So Robert took extra routes. One haul became 2, 2 became 3. Sleep became a luxury he could not afford. August 16th, Los Angeles to Albuquerque, 34 hours without rest. August 17th, 2:47 in the morning, 47 miles north of Phoenix. His eyelids began to droop. Just for a second, he told himself. Just rest them for 1 second. The 18-wheeler drifted left. 300 meters to the south, Garrett Blackwood was leading his brothers toward catastrophe. He did not know it yet. He was thinking about the letter from the United States Attorney's Office, the one that had arrived 6 weeks ago. RICO charges, conspiracy, racketeering, the kind of accusations that could put him and 7 of his senior brothers in federal prison for decades. The charges were built on lies, testimony from informants who would say anything to reduce their own sentences. But Garrett had learned long ago that truth meant nothing when the government wanted headlines. His lawyer, Catherine Whitmore, had been blunt. The jury will walk in believing motorcycle clubs are criminal organizations. We need something to counter that narrative. Hence today's ride. Every August, the Iron Wolves chapter organized a camping trip for children from the foster system. Riding for Tomorrow, they called it. This year, Catherine had arranged for a reporter from the Arizona Republic to document everything. Photographs of leather-clad bikers roasting marshmallows with orphans might plant seeds of doubt in potential jurors' minds. It was a desperate gamble, but desperate times demanded desperate measures. The 4 children waiting by the minivan were the only ones whose paperwork had cleared in time. Garrett walked over to introduce himself. Sienna was 13, dark ponytail, arms crossed, eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. Tyler and Cole were 8-year-old twins. One could not stop talking. The other had not spoken since they arrived. And Lily was 6, blonde hair, blue eyes, a stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Garrett knelt down to her level. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's your rabbit's name?" Lily studied him. The leather vest, the patches, the tattoos that crawled up both arms like illustrated history. Garrett waited. Children were better judges of character than adults. They had not learned to lie to themselves yet. "Mr. Whiskers," she said finally. "He's scared of loud noises." "Well, you tell Mr. Whiskers the motorcycles are friendly, loud like thunder." Thunder sounds scary, but it's really just the sky saying hello. Lily considered this with the gravity of a judge weighing evidence. Then she nodded. "Okay, I'll tell him." Garrett stood his knees protesting. He looked at the 4 children, then at his 32 brothers, then at the open road stretching north. For a moment, he allowed himself to hope. Maybe this ride could change things. Maybe doing good would be enough to save them. He climbed onto his Harley and raised his fist. 32 engines roared in response. The column began to move. In his side mirror, Garrett watched the white minivan fall into formation behind them. Rachel Bennett was driving a 43-year-old nurse with a gentle manner and a lead foot. She knew the route, she knew the kids. What Garrett did not see was the 18-wheeler 2 miles ahead drifting across the center line. What he did not see was Robert Morrison's eyes closing for the last time before everything changed. The rumble strip screamed against the truck's tires. Robert's eyes snapped open. Too late. The truck was already sideways. 80,000 pounds of steel and cargo sliding across both northbound lanes, like a wall being lowered from the sky. Rachel Bennett had exactly 4 seconds to react. She saw the truck begin its deadly pirouette across the highway. Her brain processed the information in fragments. Jackknife blocking lanes. No escape. Children in back. 4 seconds is not enough time to stop a minivan at 65 miles per hour. Rachel did the only thing she could. She yanked the wheel right, aiming for the shoulder, for the desert beyond, for anywhere that was not directly in the path of an 18-wheeler. The right tires caught gravel. At highway speed, gravel is ice. The van began to spin. In the back seat, Sienna grabbed the twins and pulled them against her chest. Lily screamed for a mother who had abandoned her in a gas station bathroom 3 years ago. Mr. Whiskers fell from her grip as the world turned upside down. The van hit the guardrail at 43 miles per hour. The impact flipped it onto its side. Momentum carried it forward, scraping along the barrier in a shower of sparks. Windows exploded inward glass, transforming into 1,000 tiny knives. Then the guardrail ended. The vehicle launched into the air, rotating, tumbling, a white metal coffin, suspended for one impossible moment against the dark Arizona sky. It landed on its roof, slid 40 feet, and came to rest in the dirt beneath the overpass where Bryn Ashford had been sleeping. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then the screaming started. Garrett was riding point when he saw the truck jackknife. His reflexes took over before his brain caught up. He squeezed the brakes, dropped 2 gears, and brought his Harley to a stop on the shoulder while the 18-wheeler completed its slide. The truck missed him by less than 20 feet. Then he saw the minivan, saw it hit the guardrail, saw it flip, saw it disappear over the embankment. No. The word tore from his throat with a force that surprised him. Garrett Blackwood was not a man who lost control, but those were his kids in that van. He gunned his engine and raced toward the point where the van had gone over. The scene at the bottom was worse than he had imagined. The minivan lay crumpled on its roof, compressed like a stepped-on aluminum can. Every window was shattered. Steam and smoke poured from beneath the hood. Rachel hung upside down in the driver's seat, unconscious, blood dripping from her forehead. But the children were alive. He could hear them screaming. Garrett sprinted toward the van. The first thing he noticed was the heat. The second was the smell. Gasoline. The fuel tank had ruptured. He could see liquid pooling beneath the vehicle, spreading across the sand in a dark stain that caught the light from his headlamp. The fumes hit his nostrils and triggered every alarm in his body. Fuel plus heat plus time equals fire. Fire plus trapped children equals a nightmare he would carry forever. Garrett grabbed the driver's door handle and pulled. It did not move. The frame had bent on impact, jamming every door shut. He and Pike pulled together. 450 pounds of combined strength. Nothing. The windows, Garrett shouted. Get them out through the windows. But the windows were shattered and the roof had partially collapsed, creating a space barely 2 feet high. An adult could not fit. An adult could not reach the children. An adult could not undo the jammed seatbelts. And the smoke was getting thicker. Garrett saw the first flame appear beneath the hood. Small, orange, hungry, it would not stay small for long. Jaws of life, someone shouted. 911. 20 minutes out. 20 minutes. Garrett looked at the growing flame, looked at the gasoline spreading across the sand, looked at the 4 children screaming inside. They did not have 20 minutes. They had maybe 90 seconds. Garrett Blackwood, president of the Iron Wolves, a man who had ridden through storms that could kill, who had faced down threats that would break most men, fell to his knees in the dirt. His hands, the hands that had fixed motorcycles for 30 years, began to shake. For the first time in his adult life, he was completely helpless. And then, from the shadows beneath the overpass, a girl appeared. Barefoot, filthy, running straight toward the flames. Bryn's feet moved before her brain gave permission. One moment she was pressed against the concrete pillar, watching the chaos unfold from the safety of shadows. The next moment she was running, sprinting across the dirt toward a burning vehicle surrounded by giants in leather. Every survival instinct screamed at her to stop. Bikers meant danger. Fire meant death. Being seen meant the system. But the screaming, God, the screaming, it was not adult screaming. Not the angry shouts of men fighting, or the desperate cries of someone being robbed. This was higher, purer, more terrified. This was children. And somewhere deep in Bryn's chest, in a place that 22 months of survival had not managed to kill something, switched off. The calculating part of her brain that weighed risks and rewards simply stopped functioning. She saw the blonde hair through the shattered window. The little girl who had waved at her. The child was hanging upside down, screaming flames reflected in her terrified eyes. Bryn ran faster. Garrett saw the girl appear from nowhere. One moment there was nothing but smoke and helplessness and the crushing weight of failure. The next moment there was a child sprinting toward the burning van with speed and purpose that seemed impossible for someone so small. The kid was filthy, clothes torn and stained with weeks of street living. Feet bare, the soles blackened from Arizona asphalt. Frames so thin Garrett could count ribs through the holes in her shirt. But her eyes were absolutely focused. "Kid, stop, get back," Garrett shouted. The girl did not slow down. She ran past Garrett, past Pike, past the wall of bikers who stood helpless before the burning vehicle. She dropped to her knees beside the van and studied the shattered rear window with an intensity Garrett had never seen in a child. 3 seconds of assessment. Then she moved. Bryn had exactly one advantage over every adult at that crash site. She was small. The rear window opening was roughly 18 inches high and 24 inches wide. An adult male could not fit. The collapsed roof made it impossible. But Bryn was 11 years old and had been malnourished for most of those years. Her shoulders were narrow. Her hips were thin. She had spent 2 years squeezing into spaces that should have been too small. She could fit. The heat hit her first. The interior was an oven. August sun baking metal for hours, now amplified by the growing fire. Sweat erupted across her entire body. Her lungs protested as they drew in air that felt too hot to breathe. She kept moving. Glass bit into her palms and knees. She ignored it. The pain was nothing compared to what waited if she stopped. The first child she reached was Lily. The little girl hung upside down from her car seat, suspended by the 5-point harness. Blood matted her blonde hair from a cut on her scalp. Her blue eyes were wide with terror. In her arms, somehow still clutched tight, was Mr. Whiskers. "Please," she whispered. "Please help us." Bryn did not waste time with words. She reached up and found the release button. Jammed. The impact had warped the plastic housing. She pressed harder, putting her entire body weight behind her thumb. Nothing. The flames were closer now. She could feel them reaching for her through the gap between the front seats. Orange light flickered across Lily's face. Bryn pressed harder. Her thumb felt like it was going to break. She thought about the moment their eyes had met through the van window. The wave. The hand she had almost raised in response. This child had acknowledged her, had seen her, had treated her like she existed. Click. The harness released. Lily tumbled free and Bryn caught her before she hit the glass-covered ceiling. "Can you crawl, Bryn?" I asked. The little girl nodded, tears streaming up her forehead in the inverted world. "Go out the back window. The people outside will catch you. Don't forget Mr. Whiskers." Lily grabbed her rabbit and began crawling toward the light. Bryn turned to the twins. 40 seconds gone. 3 lives remaining. Outside, Garrett watched the girl's bare feet disappear into the burning vehicle. Every instinct told him to reach in and drag the kid back, but the opening was too small. His shoulders would not fit. His hands could not reach. All he could do was wait and pray to a God he had stopped believing in 20 years ago. The first child emerged. The little blonde girl, Lily, covered in glass and blood, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Garrett grabbed her and passed her to Pike, who carried her away from the flames at a dead run. "Come on," Garrett whispered. "Come on, kid. Get them out." The twins were tangled together, their seatbelts twisted during the crash into a knot that looked impossible to undo. One was conscious, eyes locked on Bryn with desperate hope. The other was not moving. The fire was 10 feet away. Bryn could see it through the gap, a wall of orange and red, consuming the engine compartment, reaching toward the passenger cabin with hungry fingers. Smoke filled her lungs with each breath. Her eyes watered. Her throat burned. She found the first release mechanism, jammed like Lily's, but this one was worse. The metal housing had bent the button depressed at an angle that prevented the latch from releasing. She needed a tool. Her eyes scanned the destroyed interior. There, a piece of metal trim torn loose from the door panel, thin 1/4 inch wide with a pointed end where it had snapped. The metal was hot enough to burn her palm. She grabbed it anyway. Wedged the point into the gap beside the seatbelt button. Pushed, levered. Click, the first twin tumbled free. Go, Bryn said. Window, now. The conscious boy, Tyler, hesitated, looking at his brother. I'll get him. Go, 20 seconds. 2 lives remaining. The second twin's seatbelt was worse than the first. The mechanism had not just bent, it had partially melted. Soft plastic fused in a way no tool could fix. The fire was 5 feet away. Bryn did the only thing she could think of. She started chewing. The seatbelt material was tough, woven nylon designed to withstand thousands of pounds of force, but it was still fabric. Threads that could be separated with enough pressure at a small enough point. Bryn bit down and pulled using her teeth like a saw. Fibers separated one at a time while the fire crept closer and her lungs screamed for clean air. Mom, she thought, I'm not running away this time. I'm running toward. The strap gave way. The unconscious twin Cole fell into Bryn's arms. 60 pounds of dead weight. She struggled to hold him to breathe, to see through the tears the smoke forced from her eyes. She began dragging the boy toward the window. 10 seconds, 1 life remaining. Sienna was still trapped. The oldest girl hung from her seatbelt, blood covering her hands where she had tried to claw herself free. Her dark eyes met Bryn's through the smoke. Go! Sienna shouted. Get him out! Leave me! Bryn hesitated. The fire was 3 feet away. The unconscious boy weighed 60 pounds. The window was 8 feet behind her. If she tried to save them both, she might save neither. Go! Sienna screamed. Don't let him die because of me! Bryn made a decision. She dragged the twin to the window, pushed him through into the waiting hands of the bikers outside. Then she turned around and crawled back into the fire. Outside, Garrett Blackwood watched in disbelief. The girl had already performed miracles. She had freed 3 children in less than a minute. She had just pushed an unconscious child through the window to safety. And now she was going back. Going back into smoke and flames in a vehicle that could explode at any second. Kid no, Garrett shouted. The girl either could not hear or chose not to listen. She disappeared into the smoke. 5 seconds, 1 life remaining. Bryn could barely see. The smoke was so thick that Sienna was just a shadow in the darkness, illuminated only by the hellish glow of approaching flames. Her lungs were burning. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around to escape, to save herself. She kept crawling. I told you to leave, Sienna said. Her voice was hoarse, but there was no fear in it, only anger. I told you to save the others. I did, Bryn said, grabbing the girl's seatbelt. Now I'm saving you. There's no time. Then stop talking and let me work. The mechanism was jammed but intact. The button would not depress because the crash angle put continuous pressure on the latch. Bryn understood the problem. She had seen it before, back when her father was still trying, back when he would fix things around their motel rooms, back when he would explain how leverage worked, how force could be redirected. Push yourself up, Bryn said. Take the weight off the belt. Sienna grabbed the seat and pulled, lifting her body just enough to change the angle of force. Bryn pressed the button. Click. Sienna tumbled free. Bryn caught her. Window. Now. They crawled together, Sienna in front, Bryn behind. The heat was unbearable. Bryn felt her skin beginning to blister, felt her hair singeing, felt the fire reaching for her with fingers made of pure destruction. 3 feet to the window, 2 feet, 1 foot. Sienna dove through the opening. Bryn followed. She was halfway out when the world exploded. The blast wave hit Bryn like a giant's fist. One moment she was crawling toward safety. The next moment, she was airborne, flying 15 feet through the air, her shirt catching fire, the breath driven from her lungs in a rush that left no room for screaming. Then she hit the ground. Her head bounced off hard-packed Arizona dirt. Stars exploded across her vision. Somewhere far away, someone was screaming her name. But she did not have a name. Not anymore. Not to anyone. Garrett was moving before the explosion finished blooming. 31 years of riding had given him reflexes that operated below conscious thought. His body reacted while his mind still processed the image of the girl flying through the air like a discarded rag doll. The kid's shirt was on fire. Not fully engulfed, not yet, but flames licking up the back, spreading toward exposed skin. Garrett ripped off his leather vest. The vest he had worn for 23 years. The vest bearing patches earned with blood and loyalty and sacrifice. He did not hesitate. He threw himself on top of the girl and smothered the flames with leather and body weight. Heat seared through his shirt. Burns formed on his forearms. He pressed down harder, rolling the girl beneath him, suffocating the fire. The flames died. Garrett looked at the child in his arms. 70 pounds, maybe less. Bare feet bloody and blistered. Hands covered in cuts from windows and burns from hot metal. Back a mess of second-degree burns. But she was breathing. She was alive. And so were 4 children who should have been dead. Pike appeared at Garrett's side, his face pale beneath road dust and sweat. Ray, his voice cracked. Ray did that, just happen. Did that girl just, yeah. Garrett's voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, she did. Behind them, the minivan was fully engulfed, a bonfire of twisted metal that had come within seconds of becoming a crematorium. The heat forced everyone back, created a perimeter of scorched earth around the wreckage. 30 feet away, the 4 children huddled together in the dirt. Sienna had her arms wrapped around the twins, and Lily forming a protective barrier, even though the danger had passed. Her eyes were fixed on the girl lying in Garrett's arms, the dirty, barefoot stranger who had crawled into hell to save her life. Sirens wailed in the distance. We need to get her to a hospital, Pike said. Garrett nodded, but he did not move. Could not move. He was staring at the girl's face. The sharp cheekbones visible under dirt, the cracked lips, the dark circles under closed eyes. This child had been starving. This child had been alone. This child had seen the fire and run toward it anyway. Who are you? Garrett whispered. The girl's eyes fluttered open. For a moment there was no recognition in them. Just fear. Raw, primal fear. The kind Garrett had seen in the eyes of men facing death. Then the girl heard the sirens. Her whole body went rigid. Before Garrett could react, the kid twisted out of his grip and scrambled to her feet. She swayed, nearly collapsed, caught herself on pure willpower. Kid, wait. The girl ran, injured, burned, bleeding. She ran, not toward the approaching ambulances, away from them, into the shadows beneath the overpass, into the desert beyond, into the darkness that had apparently been her home. Within seconds, she had vanished completely. Garrett stood frozen, staring at the empty space where the girl had been. What the hell? Pike said. Where did she go? She ran. Garrett's voice was hollow. She saved 4 lives, and then she ran from us. From help. From everything. Why would she? Because she's scared. Garrett finally turned to face his brother. She's more scared of us than she was of that fire. She's more scared of what we represent than of burning alive. The ambulances arrived. Paramedics swarmed the scene. The 4 children were loaded onto stretchers. Rachel Bennett was stabilized, her injuries serious but not life-threatening. Statements were taken, measurements recorded, photographs documenting the impossible, and Garrett could not stop staring at the shadows. Ray Pike's hand landed on his shoulder. We need to focus. The kids are safe. Rachel's going to make it. This is a miracle. It's not finished. Garrett's jaw tightened. That girl is out there somewhere. Hurt. Alone. She needs help. We don't even know her name. Then we find out Garrett turned to face his brother fully. Pike, that kid did something today that grown men couldn't do. She crawled into a burning car without thinking, without hesitating, without any regard for herself. She saved 4 children who would be dead right now if she hadn't appeared. Garrett's voice hardened. I'm not going to let her disappear. I'm not going to let her bleed out in some alley because we were too busy congratulating ourselves to look for her. The feds can wait. The lawyers can wait. Everything can wait. Garrett looked back at the darkness. I'm going to find that girl. And when I do, I'm going to give her something she's probably never had. Pike waited. A family. Bryn ran until her legs gave out. Then she walked. Then she crawled. The pain was everywhere. Her back felt like someone had pressed a hot iron against her skin. Her hands were sticky with blood. Her feet screamed with every step as glass worked deeper into the flesh. But she kept moving. The sirens had triggered something deep in her survival brain. Something that overrode pain and exhaustion and the logical part of her mind that knew she needed medical attention. Sirens meant police. Police meant questions. Questions meant the system. She had seen how those bikers looked at her. Gratitude, wonder, something that might have been respect. But gratitude did not stop adults from making phone calls. Wonder did not prevent social workers from showing up. Respect meant nothing when you were an 11-year-old with no identification, no guardian, no proof you existed. Bryn had been invisible for 22 months. She intended to stay that way. The abandoned warehouse was 3 miles from the crash site, a distribution center for a furniture company that went bankrupt in 2008. Empty space and broken windows and the kind of silence Bryn had learned to love. She collapsed onto her sleeping bag, which was really just a torn blanket she had found behind a shopping mall, and stared at the ceiling. Rust stains spread across corrugated metal. Pigeons cooed in the rafters. And for the first time since her mother died, Bryn allowed herself to cry. Not from pain, not from fear, from something she could not name. She had saved them. Those 4 children were alive because of her. The little girl with the rabbit, the twins, the angry one who had told her to leave her behind. They would grow up. They would have futures. They would never know her name. And that was okay. That was enough. Run, baby, run, and don't look back. Her mother's voice echoing across the years. But she had not meant forever, had she? She had meant survive. Make it through the fire. Find something worth stopping for. Bryn closed her eyes. Her hand went to her pocket, checking for the 2 things she never lost. The locket, the note, both still there. Both reminding her of who she had been and who she had lost. Maybe someday she would find something worth stopping for. But not today. Today she just needed to survive one more night. Outside, the sun was setting over Phoenix, and 100 miles away, Garrett Blackwood was making phone calls. The hunt was about to begin. The word went out at 7:43 that evening. Garrett stood in the parking lot of Phoenix General Hospital, phone pressed to his ear, voice carrying the authority of 3 decades leading men through impossible situations. Behind him through the glass doors, he could see the 4 children being treated by doctors who kept shaking their heads in disbelief. They should be dead. Everyone who looked at the crash photos said the same thing. They were not dead because of a girl who had vanished like smoke. I need every brother we have, Garrett said into the phone. Not just Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, Yuma, everyone within driving distance. Marcus Webb, president of the Tucson chapter, was silent for a moment. Ray, we heard about the crash. You're saying a kid did that? A homeless kid, a girl, Garrett corrected. I watched her do it. I watched her crawl into a burning vehicle and pull out 4 children one by one. Then I watched her disappear before I could thank her. How many men do you need? As many as you can spare. This isn't a hunt, Marcus. It's a rescue. That girl is injured. She needs medical attention, and she's terrified of authority. She's going to hide until she can't hide anymore. We'll be there by midnight. By 9 o'clock, word had spread across Arizona and into neighboring states. By midnight, Garrett had over 120 bikers assembled in the clubhouse parking lot. 120 men who had dropped everything, left their families, driven through the night to search for a child none of them had ever met. Pike spread a map across the hood of a pickup truck. I've divided the city into sectors. Each team takes one. We check every overpass, every abandoned building, every place a street kid might hide. Garrett nodded. She won't go to a hospital. Kids like her don't trust institutions. Phoenix is a big city, Ray. Thousands of places to hide. Then we check thousands of places. The search began at 12:30 in the morning. 120 motorcycles split into teams, spreading across Phoenix like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. They checked underpasses and abandoned lots. They searched behind strip malls and inside empty warehouses. They talked to the homeless population, the night shift workers, the insomniacs who wandered dark streets. Have you seen a girl 11 years old, skinny, barefoot, burns on her back? The answers were always the same. No, sorry, haven't seen anyone like that. By dawn, they had covered 60% of the city. By noon, 80%. By evening, nothing. Garrett stood in the clubhouse parking lot, surrounded by exhausted men who had been searching for 18 hours straight. Some had fallen asleep on their bikes. Others leaned against walls drinking coffee that had stopped having any effect. We're missing something, Garrett said. She's out there. She's hurt. She can't have gone far. Sal stepped forward, his voice tired and frustrated. Ray, maybe we need to face facts. We've got the feds breathing down our necks. Half our brothers should be with their families right now, not chasing ghosts. And for what a homeless kid who doesn't want to be found. The words hung in the air like poison. Garrett turned slowly to face Sal. That homeless kid saved 4 children. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight that made men step back. 4 children who would be dead right now. 4 children who will grow up and have families of their own because a girl nobody wanted crawled into a fire that grown men couldn't face. Garrett stepped closer. You want to talk about protecting our families? That girl is family now. She became family the moment she risked her life for our people. And if we abandon her, if we give up because it's hard or inconvenient, then we don't deserve to call ourselves brothers. Sal looked away. I'm sorry, Ray. I didn't mean I know what you meant. I know everyone's tired. I know we have problems that won't wait. Garrett looked around at the assembled men. But I also know who we are. We're the ones who show up. We're the ones who stay. We're the ones who fight for people who can't fight for themselves. He paused. That girl is out there dying alone because she thinks the world has nothing to offer her but pain. I'm going to prove her wrong. Anyone who wants to help mount up. Anyone who doesn't go home. No judgment, but I'm not stopping. Silence. Then one by one the men stood up. They got back on their bikes, and the search continued. Bryn had not slept in 41 hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the fire, saw the children hanging upside down, saw the oldest girl's face when she told Bryn to leave her behind. The burns on her back had blistered and broken. Fluid seeped through her ruined shirt. Her hands had swollen to twice their normal size, the cuts inflamed and hot to the touch. She needed help. She knew she needed help. But help meant people, and people meant calling questions, and questions meant the system. She had spent the day listening to the distant rumble of motorcycles that seemed to be everywhere. At first, she thought it was normal traffic, but as the hours passed and the rumbling continued closer, then fading closer, then fading, a terrible suspicion formed in her fevered mind. They were searching for her, but why Bryn's brain, clouded by infection and exhaustion, could only produce one answer. Punishment. She had interfered. She had touched their people without permission. Now they wanted to make sure she understood the consequences. It did not matter that she had saved the children. Nothing ever mattered except power and control. She had to move, had to find somewhere else to hide. Bryn forced herself to her feet. The warehouse spun around her. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel darkness creeping in from the edges. She grabbed a milk crate to steady herself and felt the plastic crack under her grip. One step, then another. The gap in the fence seemed miles away. She made it halfway before her legs gave out. Bryn collapsed onto the concrete floor, cheek pressed against the cold surface, eyes staring at nothing. The fever had taken hold completely. Her body was shutting down, prioritizing vital functions, letting everything else slip away. This is how I die, she thought. Alone in an empty building with nobody to know or care. She thought of her mother, her voice singing lullabies, her arms around Bryn during thunderstorms, her hands pushing her daughter toward the exit while smoke filled the hallway behind them. Run, baby. Run and don't look back. Bryn had run. She had survived. And now it was ending anyway. She closed her eyes. Somewhere outside, engines rumbled closer, then stopped. Footsteps on concrete, a flashlight beam cutting through darkness. A voice rough and familiar, filled with something that sounded impossibly like hope. Over here. I found her. Bryn tried to open her eyes, tried to run. Her body would not respond. Hands touched her, careful and gentle. Someone rolled her onto her back. Garrett Blackwood's face appeared above her, illuminated by flashlight glow. The beard, the weathered skin, the eyes that had watched her crawl into the fire. "Hey," the biker's voice cracked. "Hey, kid, can you hear me?" Bryn stared up at him. The man who had watched her save 4 children. The man whose vest had smothered the flames on her back. The man who had spent almost 2 days searching for a girl nobody wanted. Why Bryn's voice was barely a whisper. "Why are you here?" Garrett's eyes glistened in the darkness. "Because you saved my children. And little girls who save the world deserve someone to save them." Bryn felt something break inside her chest. Something that had been frozen for 2 years, locked away behind walls she had built to survive. She did not have the strength to run anymore, did not have the strength to fight, did not have the strength for anything except one word. "Okay," her eyes closed. Garrett gathered her up like a father holds a daughter and refused to let go until the paramedics arrived. The hunt was over, but the real journey was just beginning. The hospital room was white and quiet and nothing like anywhere Bryn had slept in 2 years. She woke slowly, consciousness rising through layers of fog like a diver ascending from deep water. The first thing she noticed was the absence of pain. Not gone entirely, but dulled, wrapped in something soft that kept the sharp edges from cutting too deep. The second thing she noticed was the ceiling. Clean, no rust stains, no water damage, no pigeons, just white acoustic tiles with tiny holes arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Bryn stared at those patterns for a long time. She was afraid to look anywhere else. "Hey," the voice came from her right, soft, careful, the voice of someone trying not to startle a wounded animal. Bryn turned her head. Garrett Blackwood sat in a chair beside the bed. Same leather vest, same weathered face, same eyes that had watched her crawl into the burning van. But something was different now. The hardness had softened into something else, something that looked almost like tenderness. "How are you feeling?" Garrett asked. Bryn's throat was dry. She tried to speak and produced only a croak. Garrett immediately reached for a cup of water on the bedside table. He held it carefully, angling the straw toward her lips. Every instinct screamed at Bryn to refuse to push the cup away to find the exit. But she was so thirsty. She drank. The water was cold and clean and tasted like nothing Bryn had experienced in 22 months. She drank until the cup was empty. Garrett refilled it without being asked. "The doctors say you were severely dehydrated," Garrett said, setting the cup back down. "Infected burns, cuts that needed stitches, malnutrition." He paused. "They say you've been on your own for a long time." Bryn said nothing. Her eyes moved to the door, calculating distance, evaluating obstacles. "Old habits." "Nobody's called social services," Garrett said quietly. "Nobody's filed any reports. As far as the hospital knows, you're my niece visiting from Nevada. I'm your legal guardian." Bryn blinked. "You lied." "I did." Why Garrett was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something Bryn could not identify. "Because I've seen what the system does to kids like you. The foster homes that collect checks and forget to buy food. The group facilities where children go in and never come out the same." He paused. "Not the same." Garrett met her eyes. "You've survived on your own for almost 2 years. You've learned to be invisible. I wasn't going to take that from you." Bryn did not know what to say. Nobody had ever protected her before. Not since her mother. "What do you want?" The question came out harder than Bryn intended, sharpened by years of learning that nothing was free. People don't help for no reason. "What do you want from me?" Garrett did not flinch. "I want to offer you a choice. What choice? You can leave right now if you want. I'll give you money, clothes, whatever you need. Nobody will stop you. Nobody will follow you." Garrett leaned forward. "Or you can stay. You can let us help you. You can become part of something. Part of what a family." The word hit Bryn like a physical blow. Family. She had a family once. A mother who sang lullabies and held her during storms. A father who tried and failed and eventually disappeared. Family meant loss. Family meant pain. Family meant trusting someone and watching them leave. "I don't have family," Bryn said. "You could." Why Bryn's voice cracked. "Why would you want me? I'm nobody. I'm just a homeless kid who happened to be under a bridge when your van crashed." Garrett stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot below. When he spoke, his voice was rough with old grief. I had a daughter, Emma. She was 11, same age as you. Bryn waited. Her mother died when Emma was 6. I tried to raise her alone, but I made mistakes. The kind of mistakes that looked small at the time but turn into cracks big enough to swallow everything. I was running the club, always busy, always one more thing that needed my attention. Emma needed stability, and I gave her chaos. Garrett's hands gripped the windowsill. Social services took her when she was 8, said I was unfit, said the motorcycle club was a dangerous environment for a child. They put her in foster care. I fought for 2 years to get her back. Court dates, evaluations, everything they asked for. But the system decided I wasn't good enough. He turned to face Bryn. Emma aged out 3 years ago, 18 years old and suddenly on her own. I tried to find her, hired investigators, called everyone I knew, but she didn't want to be found. Last I heard, she was in California somewhere. Maybe alive, maybe not. I don't know. Tears glistened in Garrett's eyes. I can't change what happened to Emma, but I can make sure it doesn't happen to you. Bryn felt her throat tighten. I'm not your daughter. No, you're not. Garrett walked back to the chair and sat down. You're something else. You're a girl who saw 4 children about to and ran toward the fire instead of away from it. You're a girl who has every reason to hate the world, but still chose to save strangers. His hand rested on her shoulder, gentle and warm. That kind of courage doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from something inside you, something that refuses to go out no matter how hard life tries to extinguish it. Garrett's voice grew thick. I want to protect that. I want to give it room to grow. I want to prove to you that the world isn't just pain and abandonment. Bryn stared at him. 22 months of survival instincts screamed at her to refuse to disappear, to become invisible again. But there was another voice now, quieter, her mother's voice. Run, baby. Run and don't look back. But Elaine Ashford had not meant forever, had she? She had meant survive. Make it through the fire. Find something worth stopping for. I'm scared, Bryn whispered. I know. What if you leave? What if you disappear like everyone else? Then I'll be the biggest disappointment of your life, and you'll have every right to hate me forever. Garrett did not look away. But I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to disappear. I'm going to be here every single day until you believe me. Bryn felt tears threatening. She fought them back. I don't know how to trust people anymore. Then don't trust me. Not yet. Trust takes time. Garrett squeezed her shoulder. Just stay. Give us a chance. Give yourself a chance. If it doesn't work, you can leave whenever you want. No locks, no chains, no system. Bryn looked at the door, then at Garrett, then at her own hands bandaged and healing. The hands that had pulled 4 children from a burning vehicle. She thought about Lily and Mr. Whiskers, about the twins, about Sienna who had told her to leave. She thought about her mother pushing her toward the exit. She thought about running. And for the first time in 2 years, she thought about stopping. Okay, Bryn said. Okay, I'll try. Garrett's face transformed. Worry and tension melted away, replaced by something that looked like weird, unguarded joy. Good. That's good. He pulled her into a hug, careful of the healing burns. And for the first time in 2 years, Bryn hugged back. 3 days later, on the morning Bryn was scheduled to be discharged, 3 black SUVs pulled into the hospital parking lot. Men in dark suits emerged with the coordinated movements of people who had done this many times before. Bryn watched from her window, something cold settling in her stomach. Garrett was sitting beside her bed, reading through discharge papers. He looked up at her expression, then followed her gaze to the parking lot below. His jaw tightened. Stay here, he said quietly. No matter what happens, stay in this room. Who are they? People who want to ask questions were not ready to answer. Garrett stood and walked to the door. Pike was already there, having come up from the lobby. They spoke in low voices Bryn could not quite hear. Then Garrett left his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Bryn sat in the hospital bed, her heart pounding. She knew this feeling. The trapped animal awareness that danger was close. She looked at the door, measuring distances again. The window was too high. The door was the only exit. And outside that door were men with authority and power, and the ability to make her disappear into the system she had spent 2 years avoiding. She was gathering her things, preparing to run, when she heard voices in the hallway, getting closer. Agent James Carson stood in the hospital corridor, credentials already in hand. Tall, silver hair, eyes like granite. Behind him, two more agents flanked the doorway. Mr. Blackwood, Carson said, "We need to discuss the incident on Interstate 17. Garrett stood with arms crossed, blocking the doorway to Bryn's room. "We already gave statements to the highway patrol. We have additional questions, specifically about the minor who was involved. Witnesses report a child entered the burning vehicle and extracted four other minors." Carson's eyes were cold. "We'd like to speak with her." "Why, the Bureau is investigating trafficking networks in Arizona. Children on the streets are often victims. We want to ensure this particular child is safe." The words sounded reasonable. They were lies. Garrett could hear it in the too smooth delivery, the rehearsed quality of Carson's concern. "I don't know what you're talking about," Garrett said. "There was no child, just my brothers responding to a terrible accident." "That's not what witnesses say." "Witnesses were in shock." Carson's smile tightened. "Mr. Blackwood, obstruction of a federal investigation carries serious penalties. If you're harboring a minor without legal guardianship, I'm not harboring anyone. Then you won't mind if we look around." It was not a question. "You got a warrant?" Pike asked, stepping forward. Carson's jaw tightened. "We're requesting cooperation." "Request denied," Garrett said. "Come back with paper or don't come back at all." The standoff lasted 7 seconds that felt like 7 years. Then Carson nodded slowly and turned toward the elevator. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Blackwood. We'll be back, and when we return, we'll have everything we need." He paused at the elevator. "One more thing. The United States Attorney has been building a RICO case against your organization for months. Conspiracy, racketeering, the kind of charges that put men away for decades." Carson looked back. "It would be unfortunate if your unwillingness to cooperate influenced how aggressively those charges are pursued." The elevator doors closed. Garrett stood motionless, staring at the empty space where the agents had been. Then he turned and walked back into Bryn's room. She was already packing, the few items the hospital had given her. A clean shirt, sweatpants, shoes that actually fit. Her hands were shaking. "You heard," Garrett said. "I heard." Bryn did not look at him. "I need to leave. Now, before they come back. Bryn, they're using me to destroy you. If I stay, your brothers go to prison. Everything you've built disappears." She shook her head. "I won't let that happen." Garrett stepped inside and closed the door. "Sit down. I need to sit down." Something in his voice broke no argument. Bryn sat. Garrett pulled up a chair close enough that their knees almost touched. "Let me tell you something about that federal agent. He's been circling this club for 3 years. The RICO case was being built long before you crawled into that van. Whether you stay or go, they're going to do what they're going to do. But the difference is this," Garrett leaned forward. "If you stay, you won't face whatever comes alone, and neither will we. They'll take me away, put me in the system. Then we'll fight. Every brother will fight, every lawyer we can hire, every resource we have." Garrett gripped her shoulder. "You're one of us now. We don't abandon family." Bryn felt tears break free. "I'm not worth it. I'm not worth destroying everything you've built. You're worth more than you know." Garrett's voice cracked. "You're worth more than buildings and bikes and legal battles. You're worth fighting for, Bryn. You've always been worth fighting for. You just never had anyone willing to do it." Bryn stared at him through blurred vision. "Why do you care so much?" "You barely know me, because I know exactly who you are." Garrett's eyes glistened. "You're the girl who runs toward fire. You're the girl who saves strangers because it's the right thing to do. You're the girl who, after 2 years of hell, still has enough light inside her to risk everything for people she's never met." He pulled her close. "That's not a burden, Bryn. That's a gift. And I'll be damned if I let the world extinguish it." Bryn held on and made her choice. "Okay, I'll stay. I'll fight with you." "That's my girl." The words hit Bryn like lightning. My girl. Nobody had called her that since her mother died. Catherine Whitmore arrived within the hour. Her briefcase bulged with documents. Her expression could cut glass. Mid-40s iron gray hair, pulled back eyes that had won more cases than most lawyers tried. She spread papers across the hospital table with efficient precision. "The situation is complicated," she said without preamble. "Agent Carson isn't bluffing about the RICO case. The U.S. attorney has surveillance, financial records, informant testimony. They've been building this for months. Can we fight it? Garrett asked. We can fight anything. The question is winning. Catherine looked at Bryn. The immediate problem is her. She's an undocumented minor, no birth certificate on file, no social security number. As far as Arizona knows, she doesn't exist. That's been protecting her until now. And now the feds know about her. They'll use every tool to get access, including threatening kidnapping charges if you don't cooperate. The room went silent. Kidnapping. Garrett's voice was dangerously quiet. She's a minor. You have no legal guardianship. Under federal law, keeping her here could be construed as unlawful imprisonment. Catherine held up a hand. It's a stretch, but Carson doesn't need to win. He just needs leverage. So what do we do? Catherine smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We do something they're not expecting. We go on offense. The plan was elegant. Instead of hiding Bryn, they would make her famous. The crash had already attracted local media attention. 4 children rescued by a mysterious stranger. Catherine's strategy was to amplify the story until the federal government could not target Bryn without creating a public relations disaster. We arrange interviews, Catherine said. Newspaper, television, national outlets. By the time Carson returns with his warrant, Bryn Ashford will be the most famous child in Arizona. Every attempt to take her will look like the government persecuting a hero. And the RICO charges. We tie them together. The heroic motorcycle club that took in a homeless child after she saved 4 of their own. The government trying to destroy a community organization. Catherine leaned forward. We make them the villains. We make ourselves the victims. We let public opinion do what the legal system can't. Garrett looked around at the assembled brothers who had crowded into the hospital room. Vote. Every hand went up. The campaign began that evening. By morning, Bryn Ashford would be on the front page and everything would change. The Arizona Republic ran the story on September 3rd. The headline stretched across the front page in letters 3 inches tall. Barefoot hero, homeless girl, saves 4 children from burning wreck. Beneath it, a photograph Catherine had arranged with careful precision. Bryn standing between Garrett and Sienna, the burns still visible on her arms. Eyes looking directly into the camera with an expression that managed to be both vulnerable and fierce at the same time. By noon, every major outlet in the state had picked it up. By evening, it had gone national. CNN ran a 3-minute segment during primetime footage of the destroyed minivan overlaid with Garrett's account of watching an 11-year-old girl perform miracles. Fox News followed, emphasizing community organizations stepping up where government had failed. MSNBC focused on systemic failures that left children homeless in the first place. The internet exploded. Hashtags emerged organically. Barefoot hero, Bryn Ashford, real heroes. People who had never met her posted messages of support. I'd shared the article, demanded to know how they could help. Within 72 hours, Bryn Ashford had become the most famous child in America, and the federal government had a problem. Special Agent James Carson sat in his Phoenix office staring at a television, showing yet another anchor praising the courage of a homeless girl and the motorcycle club that had taken her in. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. His carefully constructed strategy had crumbled like sand. This is a disaster, Assistant Director Catherine Reeves said through the speakerphone. The Attorney General's office is getting calls from senators. Senators James, asking why we're investigating a group that rescues orphans. The RICO case is solid. The RICO case is irrelevant if we can't prosecute it. Do you have any idea what happens if we arrest Garrett Blackwood now? Every news station will run footage of that girl crawling into a burning vehicle. Every anchor will ask why we're persecuting heroes. Carson's jaw tightened. The case is suspended indefinitely. Stand down. Find another target. This one's radioactive. The line went dead. Carson stared at the phone. Then at the television where Bryn Ashford's face filled the screen. Brown hair, serious eyes, the kind of face that made people want to protect her. An 11-year-old homeless girl had just defeated the Federal Bureau of Investigation by being brave. Carson pulled open his desk drawer, inside a photograph in a simple frame. A young man, 19 years old, wearing a football uniform. Bright smile, whole life ahead of him. Michael Carson, his son. 6 years ago, Michael had been outside a bar in Tucson, wrong place, wrong time. Two motorcycle clubs getting into a dispute that turned violent. Gunfire. Michael caught in the crossfire, killed by a stray bullet from a prospect who did not even know what he was shooting at. The shooter served 8 years for manslaughter. Out now, free. While Michael was still dead, Carson had turned his grief into a crusade against motorcycle clubs. All of them. Did not matter which one. Did not matter if they were involved in Michael's death or not. They were all the same in his mind. Criminal enterprises hiding behind leather and chrome. The RICO case against the Iron Wolves had been his obsession, his way of making sense of senseless loss. Using Bryn as leverage was supposed to be the final piece, the thing that would make Garrett Blackwood crack. Now it was over, and in the wreckage of his collapsed case, Carson was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Not all motorcycle clubs were what killed his son. Not all bikers were criminals. And this girl, this brave, broken, beautiful girl, had found a family in a place he had spent 3 years trying to destroy. Carson closed the drawer, put Michael's photograph away, made a decision he should have made years ago. He would not pursue Bryn or Garrett anymore, would not let his grief hurt people who deserve better. He could not face them, could not apologize, could not undo the damage, but he could walk away, simply disappear from their lives and let them heal. It was the least he could do, and maybe somewhere Michael would understand. The adoption hearing was scheduled for October 15th. Catherine worked miracles with paperwork. Bryn's birth certificate was located in Nevada, filed under a slightly different spelling from when her mother had been running from Bryn's grandfather. Her mother's death certificate was retrieved. Her father's abandonment was documented through motel records and police reports that Catherine somehow persuaded reluctant clerks to release. Judge Helena Ramirez, a 53-year-old family court judge with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, had agreed to expedite the case. The courtroom was packed. Brothers filled the gallery, leather vests, creating a sea of patches and loyalty. Reporters occupied the back rows, cameras prohibited, but notebooks ready. Sienna sat in the front row with Tyler and Cole and Lily. The 4 children Bryn had saved united in support. Bryn sat at a table beside Catherine. Garrett on her other side. She wore a dress Catherine had bought for her. Simple. Navy blue. The first dress Bryn had worn in over 2 years. It felt strange, constricting, like playing dress-up in someone else's life. Judge Ramirez entered. Everyone rose. Be seated. She reviewed the papers before her with the careful attention of someone who took her responsibility seriously. We're here to consider the petition for legal guardianship filed by Garrett Blackwood on behalf of Bryn Ashford. She looked at Garrett over her reading glasses. Mr. Blackwood, you understand guardianship carries significant responsibilities. Yes, Your Honor. You'll be responsible for this child's education, health care, and welfare until she reaches majority. Yes, Your Honor. This responsibility cannot be abandoned without court approval. I understand. Garrett paused. And I'd like to say something if the court allows. The judge nodded. Garrett stood. Your Honor, 2 months ago, I watched this girl crawl into a burning vehicle to save 4 children. She didn't know them. She didn't owe them anything. She had every reason to stay hidden. His voice filled the courtroom. But she didn't stay hidden. She ran toward the fire. She risked everything for strangers. Garrett looked down at Bryn. That's who Bryn Ashford is. Not because someone taught her, not because she expected a reward, but because somewhere inside her there's a light that refuses to go out no matter how hard the world tries to extinguish it. He turned back to the judge. I've made mistakes in my life, done things I'm not proud of, but I've also built something. A family, a brotherhood, a community that looks out for people who can't look out for themselves. Garrett's voice cracked. I want to give Bryn that family. I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of the trust she's placing in me. The courtroom was silent. Judge Ramirez looked at Bryn. Young lady, do you have anything to say? Bryn stood on shaking legs. She had prepared a statement. Catherine had helped her write it. But looking at the judge, at Garrett, at the brothers who had searched for her and fought for her, the prepared words felt inadequate. Felt like something written by someone trying to sound like what adults wanted to hear instead of the truth. My mom used to tell me that family isn't about blood, Bryn said. Her voice was small, at first, then grew stronger. It's about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. For 2 years, nobody showed up. Nobody stayed. Nobody fought. She looked at Garrett. Then I met this man, and he showed up. He stayed. He fought. Not because he had to, because he chose to. Bryn turned to the judge. I choose him too. I choose this family. I choose to belong somewhere for the first time since my mom died. Her voice broke. Please let me stay. Silence. 3 heartbeats. Judge Ramirez removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. In 23 years on the bench, she said quietly, I have never heard more compelling testimony. She replaced her glasses, picked up her gavel. The petition for legal guardianship is granted. Mr. Blackwood, congratulations. You have a daughter. The gavel fell. The courtroom erupted. Brothers surged to their feet. Cheers drowning out the bailiff's attempts to restore order. Sienna threw her arms around Bryn. Tyler and Cole piled on. Lily pressed Mr. Whiskers into Bryn's hands. And Garrett, the president of the Iron Wolves, who had ridden through storms and faced down federal agents without flinching, gathered Bryn into his arms and wept. Welcome home, daughter, he whispered. Bryn held on tight. The word came out broken and whole at the same time. Daddy. Garrett's arms tightened. Neither of them let go for a very long time. 5 years later, Bryn Ashford Blackwood stood in the parking lot of the Phoenix Fire Academy on a morning in June 2018. The Arizona sun was already brutal at 8 o'clock. Her dress uniform was crisp and uncomfortable and absolutely perfect. She was 16 years old, 6 feet tall, nothing like the barefoot skeleton who had crawled into a burning minivan 5 summers ago. And today she was graduating. Not from the Fire Academy itself. That would come at 18 when she could officially enroll. Today was the Junior Firefighter Program completion, a 2-year course preparing young people for careers in emergency services. Bryn had finished first in her class. The irony was not lost on her. A girl who had lost her mother to fire. A girl who had nearly died in fire herself. A girl who still woke sometimes in darkness, smelling smoke that was not there, feeling heat that existed only in memory. That girl had chosen to spend her life running toward flames. Garrett called it courage. Sienna called it stubbornness. Bryn called it simple. She never wanted another child to feel what she had felt. Trapped. Terrified. Certain that no one was coming. She would be the one who came. She would be the one who showed up. Always. The parking lot was filling with vehicles. Family members arriving for the ceremony. Parents with cameras. Siblings with balloons. The normal chaos of celebration that Bryn had once believed would never be part of her life. Then she heard it. The rumble. Low at first like distant thunder. Then louder. A sound that vibrated in her chest and brought tears to her eyes before she saw the source. Motorcycles. They appeared at the end of the street like a metal river, chrome glinting in morning sun, engines roaring in perfect synchronization, one after another. More than Bryn could count. The Phoenix chapter came first. Garrett at the head, gray beard longer, Sal, eyes carrying a wisdom from 5 more years of leadership. Pike rode beside him, same position he had held since before Bryn was born. Behind them came every brother she had grown to love, Sal and Martinez and Big Pete and dozens more. But they were not alone. Tucson had sent 30 riders. Flagstaff sent 25. Yuma, Prescott, Kingman, chapters from across Arizona and beyond. New Mexico, Nevada, California, Colorado, 167 motorcycles, 167 brothers, all of them here for her. Bryn's vision blurred. Garrett dismounted and walked toward her boots crunching on gravel, face split by a grin that took years off his weathered features. Thought you might want some family at your graduation. Bryn tried to respond. The words would not come. Garrett pulled her into a hug the same way he had 5 years ago, in a dusty warehouse the same way he had 1,000 times since. Father and daughter. Not by blood, by choice. I'm proud of you, Garrett whispered. So damn proud, Bryn girl. Bryn held on tight. Thanks, Daddy. The word still felt like a miracle every time she said it. The ceremony was held in the Academy's main auditorium. Bryn sat with her fellow graduates, 23 young men and women who had spent 2 years learning skills that might one day save lives. They wore matching uniforms, carried matching certificates, but only one of them had 167 bikers occupying the entire back section, their leather vests creating a wall of patches that made the fire chief do a visible double take. The speeches were standard graduation fare. Dreams and futures, hard work and dedication, the sacred responsibility of running toward danger while others flee. Then the chief called Bryn's name. Bryn Ashford Blackwood, top of her class, outstanding achievement in physical training, emergency medical response, and fire behavior analysis. The chief paused, looking at his notes. Bryn also holds the distinction of being the only junior firefighter in our program's history to have already saved 4 lives before her first day of training. Laughter rippled through the auditorium, warm, affectionate. The Blackwood Award for Exceptional Courage is presented annually to the graduate who best exemplifies sacrifice, bravery, and service. This year, for the first time ever, the selection was unanimous. The chief held up a plaque. Bryn Blackwood, please come forward. Bryn walked to the stage on legs that felt like water. The chief shook her hand. The auditorium erupted, but it was the sound from the back that Bryn heard most clearly. 167 voices raised in a cheer that shook the walls. She looked out at them. At Garrett standing with tears streaming down his face. At Pike pumping his fist. At Sienna, now 18, sitting in the front row with Tyler and Cole and Lily. The 4 children she had saved, who had become her siblings in every way that mattered. Bryn leaned into the microphone. 5 years ago, I was invisible. The auditorium went silent. I lived under bridges and in abandoned buildings. I ate from dumpsters. I had no family, no future, no hope. Her voice steadied. Then I heard children screaming, and something happened that I still don't fully understand. I stopped being invisible. I stopped thinking about myself. I just moved. She paused. But here's what I've learned since. What happened on that highway wasn't special because of what I did. It was special because of what happened after. A man named Garrett Blackwood decided a homeless girl was worth searching for. 100 brothers decided I was worth protecting. A family chose me when no one else would. Bryn held up the plaque. This award has my name on it, but it belongs to everyone who showed up for me. Everyone who stayed, everyone who fought. She looked directly at Garrett. Thank you for teaching me that family isn't about blood. Thank you for proving that little girls can be heroes. Thank you for giving me a reason to run toward the fire instead of away from it. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. And thank you, Mom. Wherever you are, I finally understand what you meant. Bryn stepped back. The applause was deafening, but in her mind she heard something else. Her mother's voice. Run, baby. Run and don't look back. And finally, after 5 years, she understood. Elaine Ashford had not meant run away. She had meant run forward. Run toward life. Run toward love. Run toward the fire, because that is where people need you most. The celebration at the clubhouse that night was the largest in chapter history. Brothers from visiting chapters mingled with Phoenix members. A live band played in the parking lot. Children ran between motorcycles supervised by prospects who took their babysitting duties surprisingly seriously. Tables groaned under the weight of food. Laughter echoed off the walls. Sienna found Bryn on the roof, the same spot where they had talked years ago the night everything seemed impossible. The night Sienna had first realized that the dirty girl who saved her life might become something more than a stranger. Missing your party again? Sienna asked, sitting beside her. Still not my party. The award literally has your name on it. Bryn smiled. Okay, maybe a little bit my party. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. The city spread out below them. Phoenix, the place that had almost killed Bryn, the place that had saved her. I got accepted, Sienna said. Arizona State, full scholarship, social work program. Sienna, that's amazing. Turns out surviving the foster system is useful experience for a career in child welfare. She smiled, but something was bittersweet in her expression. Feels weird. Leaving. Bryn understood. The clubhouse had become home for both of them. A sanctuary. The idea of stepping outside its protection felt like jumping off a cliff with no certainty of landing safely. You know what Dad told me when I was scared to start the program? What he said, the whole point of having a family is to give you strength to leave them. Real love doesn't hold you back. It pushes you forward. Bryn reached out and took Sienna's hand. These people didn't save us so we could hide here forever. They saved us so we could go out and save others. Sienna squeezed back. When did you get so wise? Must be the company I keep. She laughed. Below them, Garrett appeared in the parking lot, looking up. He spotted them on the roof and raised his hand in a wave. Bryn waved back. No hesitation this time. No calculation about whether it was safe to be seen. Invisible girls don't wave. But Bryn Blackwood was not invisible anymore. The program had started 6 months after Bryn's adoption. Garrett called it Phoenix Rising, a partnership between the motorcycle club and the state foster care system designed to provide mentorship and support for children aging out with nowhere to go. The same children who became homeless at 18. The same children who filled underpasses and abandoned buildings. The same children Bryn had been. It started small. 3 kids in the first year, 7 in the second, 12 in the third. By 2018, Phoenix Rising had helped 78 young people find housing, employment, and hope. The model spread. Tucson launched their version, then Flagstaff, then chapters in New Mexico and Nevada, then independent clubs who heard about the program and wanted to replicate it. Across the Southwest, motorcycle clubs, once viewed with fear, were becoming lifelines for forgotten children. All because one girl crawled into a burning van. All because one man refused to let that girl disappear. All because family was a choice and they had chosen each other. Late that night, after the party wound down and the visiting brothers departed for their long rides home, Bryn sat with Garrett on the clubhouse steps. The parking lot was quiet now. Just a few bikes gleaming under streetlights. The smell of barbecue smoke still hanging in the air. 78 kids, Bryn said. That's what the program has helped so far. 78, Garrett confirmed. And more every year. Because of what happened on that highway. Because of what you did on that highway. Garrett looked at her. The butterfly effect, they call it. One small action rippling outward, touching lives the original actor never knows about. Bryn thought about that. About the children she would never meet. The lives changed by firefighters she would train. The ripples spreading long after she was gone. I keep thinking about Mom, she said quietly. About what she said that night. Run, baby. Run and don't look back. What about it? I spent 2 years thinking she meant run away, hide, survive. But that's not what she meant at all. Bryn looked up at the stars. She meant run toward life, run toward people who need you, run toward the fire because that's where you can make a difference. Garrett was quiet for a moment. Your mother sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. Bryn's voice cracked. I wish you could have met her. I feel like I have. Garrett put his arm around her shoulders. Every time I look at you, I see her. The courage, the compassion, the stubborn refusal to let the world make you hard. Bryn leaned into the embrace. I hope she can see this. Everything that's happened, everything we've built. She can. Garrett's voice was thick. I'm sure of it. They sat together in comfortable silence, father and daughter, watching the stars wheel slowly across the Arizona sky. And somewhere Bryn was certain her mother was watching too, smiling at what her sacrifice had become. Run, baby. Bryn had run and don't look back. She had not looked back. And she had found something worth more than survival. She had found home. The next morning, Bryn put on her volunteer uniform and drove to the fire station for her first shift as an assistant. The engine was already warming up when she arrived. A call had come in. Structure fire on the east side. Possible occupants trapped inside. Bryn climbed into the truck without hesitation. As they pulled out of the station, sirens wailing, she saw the building in the distance. Smoke pouring from windows. Flames visible on the second floor. The old Bryn, the invisible girl who had learned that survival meant selfishness, would have calculated the risks, would have weighed the odds, would have found reasons to stay back. But that girl was gone. In her place was someone new, someone forged in fire and rebuilt by love. Someone who understood that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to act despite it. The truck stopped. The crew poured out. Bryn grabbed her gear and ran toward the building, toward the flames, toward whoever needed her. And somewhere in her heart, she heard her mother's voice one final time. Not the command she had given that terrible night. Something different. Something that sounded like pride. That's my girl. Bryn smiled and disappeared into the smoke. 10 years later, 2028. The newspaper clipping was framed on the wall of Fire Station 7 in downtown Phoenix. Barefoot hero, homeless girl, saves 4 children from burning wreck. The photograph showed an 11-year-old girl, dirty and thin, standing between a gray-bearded biker and a dark-haired teenager. Below it, a newer article. Phoenix Rising Program celebrates 200th graduate. Founder Bryn Blackwood credits the family who chose me. And beside that, the most recent addition. Fire Captain Bryn Blackwood, 26, receives Medal of Valor. Fourth generation of children saved since Highway Miracle. The woman in the photograph was different now. Tall and strong, wearing a captain's uniform. Surrounded by her crew, but her eyes were the same. Still focused, still determined, still running toward the fire. At her side in the photo stood an older Garrett Blackwood, gray beard now fully white, leather vest still bearing the patches he had earned across 50 years of brotherhood. His arm was around her shoulders. Father and daughter, not by blood, by choice. Behind them, barely visible, a group of children in Phoenix Rising t-shirts smiled at the camera. The newest class of the program, 12 kids who had aged out of foster care with nowhere to go until a motorcycle club offered them something nobody else would. A family, a future, a chance. And written on the wall beside the newspaper clippings in Bryn's own handwriting was a quote that every firefighter in Station 7 knew by heart. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who runs toward the fire when everyone else runs away. Bryn Blackwood. Below it, added later in a shakier hand, Garrett's hand, were 4 more words. That's my girl. The station alarm rang. Bryn Blackwood, fire captain, set down her coffee and headed for the truck. Another fire, another chance to save someone, another opportunity to honor the mother who had pushed her toward the exit, and the father who had pulled her back from the edge, and the family who had proven that love was not something you were born into. It was something you chose. Every single day. Bryn climbed into the truck. The engine roared to life, and once again she ran toward the flames. The call came in at 2:17 in the afternoon. Structure fire, east side of Phoenix, residential neighborhood. Possible child trapped inside. 2nd floor. The address was familiar. Bryn had been on this street before. Nice houses, working families. The kind of neighborhood where people knew their neighbors and watched out for each other's kids. Now one of those houses was burning. The truck pulled up. Smoke poured from the upper windows, flames visible behind glass that was starting to crack from the heat. A woman stood on the front lawn, screaming, held back by a neighbor, her eyes wild with terror. My daughter, my baby, she's inside. 2nd floor, please. Bryn's crew moved with practiced efficiency, hoses deployed, water on the flames, 2 firefighters breaching the front door. But Bryn was already assessing, already calculating. The stairs would be compromised, the heat intense. Time was running out. Captain, one of her crew, called. Witnesses say there's a girl, 7 years old, 2nd floor bedroom. Bryn did not hesitate. I'm going in. Martinez, you're with me. They breached the door. Smoke thick as night. Heat like walking into a furnace. Bryn kept low, felt her way forward, every sense heightened. She had done this 100 times in training, 50 times in real situations. But it never got easier. Every fire was different. Every second mattered. The stairs groaned under their weight. Bryn tested each step, prayed they would hold. Made it to the 2nd floor. The hallway was an inferno, flames on the walls, ceiling starting to collapse. Fire department, Bryn shouted, call out. A faint voice, help, please. Bryn moved toward the sound. A bedroom door jammed. She kicked it open. Inside, a girl huddled under the bed. 7 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, clutching a stuffed animal. For a moment, just a moment, Bryn was 11 years old again, crawling into an overturned van, reaching for a little girl named Lily. Hey, sweetheart, Bryn said, kneeling down. I'm Bryn. I'm going to get you out. The girl looked at her with eyes too wide. I'm scared, I know. Bryn reached out her hand. I'm scared too, every single time. The girl blinked. You are being scared is okay. It means you're brave enough to keep going even when you're afraid. Bryn pulled the girl out from under the bed, picked her up. The child weighed maybe 60 pounds. So small, so fragile. Bryn thought about her mother, about running toward the exit while fire consumed everything behind them, about a woman who gave her life so her daughter could live. Hold tight, Bryn said. Hold tight to me and your friend there. What's your friend's name? Mr. Patches. Bryn smiled behind her mask. Mr. Patches is lucky to have you. She carried the girl toward the door. Martinez was there clearing a path. They moved through the hallway through smoke and heat and flames that reached for them like living things. Down the stairs that groaned and cracked. Through the first floor. Out the front door into sunlight and air and life. Paramedics took the girl, checked her vitals. Oxygen mask. She would be okay. Scared, traumatized, but alive. The mother ran to her daughter, fell to her knees, pulled the child into her arms and sobbed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just doing my job, ma'am. But as Bryn watched the mother hold her daughter, watched them cling to each other with the desperate intensity of people who have almost lost everything, she heard it again. Not the command her mother had given that terrible night in the hallway filled with smoke. Something different. Something that sounded like pride. That's my girl. Bryn smiled, turned back to her crew. There was still work to do, the fire to extinguish, the scene to secure, reports to file. But for now, for this moment, she allowed herself to feel what she had earned. Peace. That night, Garrett sat on the clubhouse steps. Same steps where he had sat with Bryn 10 years ago. Same view of the parking lot. Same stars overhead. But everything had changed. His phone rang. Bryn. Hey, Daddy. The words still made his heart swell every single time. Hey, Bryn, girl. How was your shift saved a little girl today? 7 years old. Reminded me of Lily. You okay? More than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. A pause, then Bryn's voice softer. Daddy, yeah, thank you for that night, for searching, for not giving up on me. Thank you for letting me find you. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, daughter. The line went quiet, not disconnected, just comfortable silence. The kind that exists between people who have earned each other's trust. Bryn hung up first. Garrett sat there, phone still in his hand. Thinking about Emma, the daughter he had lost to the system. Thinking about Bryn, the daughter he had found in the ashes. Thinking about 200 young people that Phoenix Rising had helped. Thinking about thousands more who would come. All from one moment. One girl running toward fire. One man refusing to let her disappear. Pike joined him on the steps. The old friends sitting together in the darkness. You good, Ray? Garrett nodded. That girl we pulled from the warehouse 15 years ago, Mike waited. She's out there right now pulling other kids from fires, saving lives, making a difference. And someday one of those kids she saves will grow up and save someone else. And on and on. Garrett looked at Pike. We didn't just save one life that day. We started a legacy. Pike grinned. Damn right we did. They sat in comfortable silence. Brotherhood, family, legacy, the things that mattered, the things that lasted. Somewhere in Phoenix, Bryn Blackwood climbed back into the fire truck. Ready for the next call, ready to run toward the next fire, ready to save the next person who needed her. The circle continued, the ripples spread, and in the darkness between stars, two mothers watched. Elaine Ashford, who had pushed her daughter toward life, and Emma, who Garrett still hoped was out there somewhere finding her own way home. Both of them proud, both of them certain that love never dies. It just changes form, becomes something new, something stronger, something that burns brighter than any fire. Bryn's shift ended at midnight. She drove home through empty streets, not to the clubhouse. She had her own apartment now, small, clean, hers. But she still went to the clubhouse every Sunday for dinner, still called Garrett every few days, still belonged to the family that had chosen her. She parked her truck, walked up the stairs, unlocked the door. Inside the apartment was dark. She turned on a lamp, saw her reflection in the window. Not the scared 11-year-old anymore. Not the invisible girl hiding under bridges. Someone else. Someone who had learned that courage was not the absence of fear. Someone who had learned that family was not blood. Someone who had learned that the best way to honor the people you lost was to save the people you could. Bryn walked to her bedroom. On the nightstand, a photograph, taken at her graduation. Bryn in her uniform, Garrett beside her, arm around her shoulders. Both of them smiling, both of them whole. Next to the photograph, two things. Her mother's silver locket, dented and tarnished, but still holding a photograph of a woman and her daughter from before everything broke. And her father's note, the paper worn thin from years of folding and unfolding. I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. Bryn had kept both, not as reminders of pain, as reminders of survival, of resilience, of the journey from broken to whole. She picked up the locket, opened it, looked at her mother's face, young, beautiful, full of hope for a future that would never come. "I understand now," Bryn whispered, "what you meant when you told me to run." She closed the locket, put it back on the nightstand, picked up the note, read her father's words one more time. Then she folded it carefully and placed it beside the locket. "I forgive you," she said to the empty room, to the father who had tried and failed, to the man who had left her with $20 in a note because he could not figure out how to save himself, much less his daughter. "I forgive you. And I hope wherever you are, you found peace." She turned off the light, lay down in her bed, closed her eyes. And for the first time in 15 years, Bryn Ashford Blackwood fell asleep without fear, without nightmares, without the weight of wondering if anyone would come for her, because she knew the answer now. Someone had come, someone had searched, someone had fought. And in doing so, Garrett Blackwood had not just saved a life. He had changed the world, one girl at a time, one family at a time, one choice at a time. Outside Phoenix slept under a blanket of stars. Somewhere a fire burned. Somewhere a child needed help. Somewhere someone was making the choice to run toward danger instead of away from it. And tomorrow Bryn would be there, ready, willing, able, forever running toward the fire, forever proving that love was stronger than fear, forever showing the world that family was not something you were born into. It was something you chose every single day.